Oh my God, that's me. The whisper barely left Jasmine's mouth as she stared at the ornate gold frame hanging in the secluded hallway. Her chest tightened. The glass tray in her hands trembled slightly as the truth began to sink in. The photo was unmistakable. A young black girl, 4, maybe 5, soft curls tumbling past her ears, standing stiffly in a pale pink dress, eyes wide with the kind of hope only a child can hold. Her child self, frozen, displayed like a memory someone had tried to preserve or hide. She blinked hard. How the hell was her childhood photo on the wall of the Blackwell estate? The same mansion where she'd spent the last 2 hours serving champagne to Chicago's richest, raised by strangers, passed from home to home, told her records were lost in a fire, told her past was gone. Yet, here it was, staring back at her in a corridor lined with oil paintings and antique vases. She barely heard the footsteps until the voice snapped out, cold and sharp. "You're not allowed in this part of the house!" A security guard stood at the edge of the hallway, eyes narrowing. Jasmine jumped, nearly spilling a glass. "Sorry, wrong turn. I was just looking for the restroom," she said, steadying her voice with a tight smile. The man grunted and stepped aside. She turned quickly, but not before locking every detail of the frame into memory. The ivory matting, the carved corners, the exact placement on the wall. Back in the ballroom, the noise washed over her like static. Clinking glasses, polished laughter, a string quartet playing something expensive and forgettable. And at the center of it all, Richard Blackwell, in his tailored tuxedo, standing beneath a crystal chandelier, speaking about children's futures and second chances. She spotted him instantly. The man whose house this was. The man who'd walked past her earlier like she didn't exist. Now charming guests with tales of his personal loss. We give because we know what it means to lose. Lose? Her heart lurched. She hadn't been lost. She had been discarded. There was no tragedy, no accident. Just a decision made long ago. To leave her behind. And now the man who'd done it was being applauded for his generosity, for saving other children while pretending his own had vanished into smoke. She couldn't stop staring, watching every word he said, every nod, every smile practiced to perfection. And beneath the applause, she saw it. A flicker. The faintest edge of guilt in his voice when he spoke about healing and redemption. As if even now, he was still hiding the truth. In that moment, something changed in her. She didn't feel small anymore. She didn't feel invisible. She felt focused. She was going to dig up every secret he buried. And when she did, she wouldn't beg to be acknowledged. She would make sure he remembered exactly who she was. While the crowd clapped for the man they called a visionary, Jasmine stood at the edge of the lights, a quiet smile forming. Not from joy. Not from recognition. It was the kind of smile you wear when you realize your enemy just gave you the key to his downfall. If you think this is just about a long-lost daughter finding her way home, think again. Because what Jasmine was about to uncover would make Richard Blackwell wish she had stayed a secret forever. That night, her thoughts kept circling one name. Marcus. He'd been around forever, veteran bartender, trusted at every elite gathering in the city. If secrets had weight, Marcus carried them all behind his quiet eyes and steady hands. Jasmine knew if anyone had seen what went on behind the Blackwell charm, it was him. Blackwell, Marcus coughed, nearly spilling his coffee when she said the name. You don't want to stir that pot, sweetheart. That man's got roots in places most folks can't even see. She tried to sound casual, drying a wine glass with a cloth that suddenly felt heavy. Why? What have you heard? Marcus's voice dropped as he checked they were alone in the back room. Whispers, old ones, about a daughter who vanished without a trace, and a wife who didn't just die, she died suspiciously. Jasmine's spine straightened. 4 years old, that's what Marcus said. That matched the age in the photo, the age she was when everything went dark. There's more, Marcus continued, his tone grim. After her death, he walked away with a staggering life insurance payout. And the kid? She just disappeared. It was like someone erased her. Jasmine felt the blood drain from her face. "And now he runs a charity for orphans," she said bitterly. Marcus gave a dry laugh. "Guilt makes a great business model. Slap your name on a noble cause and no one asks what you're hiding." That night, Jasmine didn't sleep. Instead, she opened a dozen tabs, created burner profiles, and started pulling threads. She traced Richard's past through digital breadcrumbs. 3 marriages after Helena, all to women half his age, all sealed tight with prenups. None lasted beyond 2 years. Then she found it. Articles buried deep in the archives. Mentions of Helena Blackwell, her mother, a respected advocate for children's rights. A woman who'd been working to expose corruption in private adoption networks. The final story was dated exactly 2 weeks before the crash that took her life. Convenient? Number calculated. Jasmine began building a timeline. A story was forming. Helena uncovers something she shouldn't. 2 weeks later, she's dead. Richard inherits everything. And a child, Jasmine, ceases to exist. But she needed more than articles. She needed proof. She knew who to ask. At dawn, she waited at the cafe's back counter, cappuccino already steaming. A few minutes later, Margaret Santos walked in, the retired private investigator with a sharp tongue and sharper mind. "Margaret," Jasmine called softly, "I need a favor." Margaret raised an eyebrow but said nothing. "I don't have much, but I can help. Clean, organize, anything. I just need the truth." The older woman studied her. "This isn't just about finding someone, is it?" "No," Jasmine said. "It's about exposing someone." Margaret smiled, slow and dangerous. "Good. I've been bored." As Jasmine poured out her story, Margaret scribbled in a weathered notebook, nodding slowly. When she finished, the investigator met her eyes. "This isn't about closure, sweetheart. You're hunting a man who may have murdered your mother." Within days, Margaret's search began yielding results. And they were worse than Jasmine feared. Richard hadn't just forgotten her. He'd declared her dead. "Look," Margaret said, sliding over a stack of documents. "He filed this. Fake death certificate. Claimed your body was never recovered." Jasmine stared, mouth dry. "He got paid," Margaret added. "500,000. For you." Her stomach twisted. He didn't just leave her. He made money pretending she was gone. Margaret's voice cut through the silence like a slow, steady blade. "His reputation? It's a shrine built on your grave." She laid the documents out in a careful line. Every newspaper article, every bank transaction, every forged page was a brick in the empire Richard Blackwell had built. And the cornerstone was Jasmine's fake death. "He crafted this whole philanthropic persona on a tragedy that never happened," Margaret said, flipping through a final file. "And Helena, she wasn't just some grieving wife. She knew something." Jasmine's chest tightened as Margaret pulled out a photo, grainy, time-stamped. "2 weeks before her death, your mother hired a private investigator. She believed Richard was trafficking children through off-the-books adoptions." Jasmine's stomach flipped. The PI vanished shortly after Helena died. No trace. Jasmine leaned in. "Are you saying—" "He didn't just kill a wife and erase a child," Margaret interrupted. "He turned their silence into profit and praise." She handed over another photo. This one even worse. A hospital timestamp. Helena lying in a bed, awake, bruised, her face swollen. She didn't die in that crash. She made it to the hospital, alive. And just before she passed, she told a nurse something. Margaret's voice dropped. She said, "Keep her safe. He can't get near her." Jasmine blinked fast, fighting the burn in her eyes. Her mother's final moments weren't confusion or panic. They were a warning. For her. She stood in silence, holding the folder to her chest. The room felt cold. Margaret stepped back. "This man is dangerous, Jasmine." "So am I," she said quietly. The calm in her voice surprised them both. "He thinks I'm gone, Jasmine continued. That's his weakness. And she would use it. 2 weeks later, the ballroom glowed in gold and crystal. The annual Blackwell Foundation Gala was in full swing. Waitstaff weaved between designer gowns and cufflinks that cost more than cars. The event's theme? Hope for the forgotten. Jasmine, dressed in black slacks and a crisp vest, moved silently among the tables, a tray in one hand, a storm in the other. On stage, Richard smiled wide for the cameras. Tonight, we celebrate second chances, he said. And as a man who once lost a daughter, I know how deep that pain runs. Applause rose. Jasmine's pulse did too. She set the tray down, stepped forward, took the microphone. Mr. Blackwell, she said, her voice calm but sharp. May I ask you something? The room froze. Richard turned. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. Miss, shouldn't you be handling refreshments? Jasmine smiled sweetly. As the daughter of 2 orphans, I was deeply moved by your speech. Gasps rippled. And your story about your daughter. Richard's smile faltered. It's personal, not something I share in detail. That's unfortunate, Jasmine said, clicking the mic on fully. Because I've brought details. Richard stared hard, trying to place her. She held his gaze. First, she said clearly, your daughter didn't die in that crash. A stunned hush fell over the crowd. Second, you abandoned her, after ensuring her mother would never speak again. Third, she stepped closer. She's here. Right now. Richard's face drained of color. Jasmine didn't move. She didn't blink. She just let the silence stretch until it was unbearable. Jasmine turned to face the crowd, mic in hand, voice calm and searing. Forgive me, she said. I just have a few questions for the man who used to be my father. Richard's face went pale. You can't be Jasmine Helena Mitchell, she interrupted. Or, as you once knew me, Jasmine Helena Blackwell, the daughter you filed paperwork to bury, so you could cash in $500,000. Gasps rippled through the ballroom. A chorus of shocked whispers rose. Richard lunged toward her, but she moved fast, staying just out of reach. Let's introduce everyone to the real Richard Blackwell, shall we? She pulled a thick envelope from beneath her vest. These are copies of the falsified death certificates you filed. One for my mother, one for me. These, she said, raising another document, are the payout statements from the life insurance policies you collected on both of us. The screen behind the stage lit up. And this, she added, clicking a remote, is the medical examiner's report. My mother didn't die on impact. She was poisoned and died 2 hours later, in a hospital room, awake, speaking. Richard staggered, unable to form words. She told a nurse to keep her daughter safe, Jasmine said, to protect her from the monster. The photo on screen shifted again, to the framed childhood picture Jasmine had found in Richard's private office. This time, the audience could read the inscription etched in pen on the back. To the world's greatest dad. Love, Jasmine. There was no saving face now. For 2 decades, Jasmine continued, her voice tightening, I believed my parents were gone, that I'd been abandoned. And you, while I struggled through shelters and foster homes, you gave speeches about loss, about redemption. Richard stepped forward again, his face crumbling. You don't have proof. I don't? She turned to the press table near the stage. Journalists, she said clearly. Did you receive the files I emailed 5 minutes ago? The ones with audio of Richard admitting to his lawyer that he handled the Helena problem and the girl was collateral? Camera shutters snapped like gunfire. The crowd was no longer clapping. They were rising, leaving. Guests muttered about canceling donations. Staff whispered. The illusion was collapsing around him. Richard's voice was barely a breath. You planned this. Of course I did, Jasmine said, locking eyes with him. You taught me that revenge is a dish best served cold. She leaned in. And Dad, I've had 20 years to chill it. The room broke open in chaos. Voices, flashes, footsteps. Margaret appeared at the side of the stage, phone held high. recording everything. Oh, and one more thing, Jasmine added, stepping off the stage. The FBI? They're outside. Sirens shrieked through the ballroom windows as agents entered. Insurance fraud, murder, money laundering. They say my evidence is airtight. As Richard's wrists were locked in cuffs, the crowd fell utterly silent. He didn't look at Jasmine. He couldn't. She watched as the man who erased her existence was finally erased from his empire. And then one final question filled the room like smoke. Could a family shattered by greed find redemption after all? Or were some fractures meant to stay broken, even when justice wins? It's poetic, isn't it? Margaret said, flipping through the audited reports, now stamped and official. He built an empire off your death, and now you're using that same empire to give life. Jasmine didn't respond right away. She was too focused, signing off on the grant for the 5th new orphanage in the South Side. This time, the money was going exactly where it was promised. What Richard had faked, she was making real. The transformation was impossible to ignore. 6 months ago, she was serving drinks in silence. Now, her face was on the covers of national magazines, the woman who rose from the dead to deliver justice. Time magazine had listed her among the 30 most influential people of the year. TV networks offered book deals, documentaries, late-night interviews. Marcus, now the event coordinator for the Reformed Foundation, grinned over his clipboard. "You're more famous than he ever was," he joked. "The man spent 30 years polishing a lie, and you tore it down in 20 minutes. And what a collapse it had been." From prison, news about Richard surfaced almost daily, and none of it was good. Former donors filed lawsuits to recover the $8.2 million they'd been misled into giving. His ex-wives broke their NDAs, releasing tell-all books with titles like Married to a Monster and Escaping the Devil in a Tuxedo. The university removed his name from the campus library. The country club burned his honorary plaque. Even his old church sent a formal letter asking him never to return after parole. But Jasmine wasn't thinking about him. She was thinking about Helena. In her investigation, Jasmine had uncovered something unexpected. Family. Helena's younger sister, Sarah, had searched for Jasmine for years. They met in a quiet park, eyes full of tears and recognition. "You've got her eyes," Sarah whispered, holding a creased photo of Helena. "She'd be so proud of the woman you've become." Sarah quickly became more than an aunt. She was the family Jasmine had never known. Together, they built a full dossier of Helena's work. Her advocacy, her battle against adoption corruption. Now, the FBI was pursuing that fight. 47 arrests. 12 illegal agencies shut down. Helena's work hadn't ended with her death. It had passed through her daughter's hands and bloomed into something unstoppable. "She didn't just fight," Sarah said one evening as they cataloged files. "She planted seeds. You grew them into a forest." Meanwhile, Richard faced the reckoning he never expected. 25 years, no parole, no assets. Everything he owned had been liquidated and redirected to restitution. His attempts to write to Jasmine always ended the same way. Returned, unread. Margaret intercepted one of his letters. She handed it over, but Jasmine didn't open it. Just one sentence peeked through the torn top. "If you are my daughter, please forgive me. I was young. I made mistakes." She tore it in half. There were mistakes, and there were murders. Forgiveness was not for men who built their legacies on graves. Her satisfaction didn't come from headlines. It came from the 800-plus letters that now filled her office each month. Like one from Amanda, 16. "I got a scholarship to study medicine at Harvard. You gave me hope." Or from Jamal, 14. "I want to be a lawyer like you. I want to defend people the way you defended your mom." This was what justice looked like. Not revenge, but restoration. A handwritten letter sat in Jasmine's inbox, wrapped in crayon drawings and folded with care. "Thanks to the foundation, my babies are back," it read. "After 8 years, we're a family again." Jasmine read it twice, her hands still. 6 months had passed since Richard's arrest. When Anderson Cooper asked her live on CNN whether she hated the man who gave her life and then erased it, Jasmine took her time before answering. Hate is expensive, she said, and I'd rather spend my wealth on healing. Richard Blackwell, without meaning to, taught me the most important truth of my life. Our origins don't define our outcome. He tried to delete me. All he did was hand me a blank canvas. The camera cut to aerial shots of the Reborn Foundation. 5 state-of-the-art children's homes, 200 kids enrolled in year-round education, 89 reunited families, and 156 scholarship recipients preparing for college, all funded by a fortune he thought would stay buried. The difference between us, Jasmine had said, he profited from a tragedy. I turned it into something sacred. He built a facade. I built a future. And people believed her, because they could see it. In the final scene of the segment, Jasmine stood before her mother's grave. The headstone no longer read like a date range. It had been replaced with a slab of rose marble, engraved with Helena Blackwell, mother, activist, warrior. She fought for those silenced. Her daughter carried the torch. "We made it, Mama," Jasmine whispered, placing white roses at the base. "The justice you never got came through me. The daughter he erased, but the one you raised to never break." As she walked back to her car, her phone buzzed. Foundation breaks record. More raised in 1 week than Richard donated in 2 decades. She smiled. That evening, her new apartment offered a view that once felt impossible. From floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago sparkled, a city that now knew her name. From behind, her phone rang. It was Sarah, as always. The daily check-in had become their ritual. "How was your day?" her aunt asked, warmth in every syllable. "Transformative," Jasmine replied, watching headlights drift down Lakeshore Drive. 50 adoptions cleared today. And you? "I finally finished sorting through Helena's journals. We're publishing them. Her words deserve to be heard." Jasmine closed her eyes, imagining her mother's voice, firm and fierce on the page. "Even in death," she said softly, "she's still protecting children." But the best part? It wasn't the headlines, or the TV spots, or the soaring donation numbers. The real revenge was that she had become everything Richard pretended to be, and more. While he rotted in a cement cell, disgraced, alone, Jasmine was building something real, something rooted, something Helena would have been proud of. His final attempt at contact, a scrawled apology, intercepted by Margaret, remained unopened. "Forgive me," he had written. "I didn't know what I was doing." She'd shredded it. Forgiveness? That was earned. And some debts couldn't be cleared. But Jasmine wasn't stuck in his shadow anymore. Every morning she woke up not to bars, but to sun slicing across high-rise glass. Egyptian cotton. Hardwood floors. A life rebuilt, brick by brick from ashes. And beneath it all, her mother's blood, her own rage, her community's trust. That was power. That was permanence. Because in the end, Richard hadn't just failed to bury her. He gave her a spotlight. And Jasmine used it not to punish, but to illuminate. For every child still waiting, still wondering, still dreaming.